Hello and welcome to While You're at the Library. It's so nice to have you join us in our little sitting room here. And gathered around the table are some librarians with, can you guess, great big piles of books. So, I'm Catherine Poulter, the host of this show, and we're so glad that you joined us. Next to me is John Bickelhaupt. He's in the reference area. And then, who are you, Kathann?
Who am I, Kathann? Kathann Hendricks, the young adult librarian.
Thank you. And then
Becky Hadley, the lead circulation librarian.
Christy Lyon, the lead reference librarian.
And so every month we kind of switch up our participants here, but we're glad that we're all here together. And Christy, why don't you begin by telling us about some of your books?
Okay. So the first one I have today, it's called Ghostland, An American History in Haunted Places. And it's a nonfiction book. It's by Colin Dickey. This book, I loved it. I stayed up too late reading it.
Great.
Because it was a combination of ghost stories and then also ones that you thought you knew, that he goes into them a little more in depth and gives kind of the real story behind it. So some of it's debunking ghost stories and some of it is ghost stories. And it's all across the United States. It's all American ones.
True stories?
True stories. The one I found the most interesting was about the Winchester Castle in California. Even the tour guides in the Winchester Castle talk about how that she had seen a psychic and they had seances at the house every night, and she felt that she needed to continue constantly building rooms and building staircases.
Stairs and
Not
stairs.
true. Not true at all. The room on the tour, but the room on the tour that they say is where they had seances was the gardener's room. And it was really more that she was an armchair architect. She designed the house. No, she designed the house, and she kept putting little staircases in and then not liking them and tearing them out and having them put more things in.
So not for a supernatural reason.
No supernatural reasons at all, just because she wanted to keep building. Also,
no guilt about
people thought she was
the source of the
strange,
wealth.
no guilt about the source of the wealth. No problem. Her daughter and her husband did pass away before she did, but they were several years apart. She didn't pay psychics. She didn't have seances. So everything that we think we know about the Winchester Castle is not really true.
It's a lie.
That's a really cool
The
place
other
to
thing that I
visit.
thought was interesting about the Winchester Castle is that part of it was because at the time, people would, especially at that kind of wealth level, would go and stay in people's houses and have these long extended visits. She really didn't like those. So if her house was never finished, she never had to host anyone to come over and have a long visit. So I really enjoyed it. There's stuff about New Orleans, there's things in Wyoming, it's all across the country. He deals with some of the people that do ghost hunting research and different things. And not all of them are things that he tries to debunk. But if there's something more there, he does the digging for you. So
How current is the book?
it just came out. Yeah, it came out
Does
in
it talk
February.
about any of the people around here?
Idaho.
There's not any local
Nothing
history in it.
local.
No.
Oh, well.
So we'll have to find one that's got more local stories. But
Yeah.
Are there any
Great.
We do
haunted
have
islands
some.
in
should
there?
take it home and stay up way too late with this ghost story, Ghostland.
Thank you. Thank you. That sounds really good. Becky, how about you?
Well, I wanted to tell you a little bit about a program that's been around for a while. It's called the Talking Book Service. And recently they've been putting a PSA on the radio, and several of the local stations have the nice little commercial. And so I thought we'd take a look at what is on
could
TV.
Could we watch a little clip?
Yeah, so let's watch that for just a second.
Okay, thank you.
Hey Mom, we brought you that book your friends have been talking about.
I wish I could still read books.
Well, you can with the Talking Book Service, and it's free.
It's easy, Grandma. All you have to do is put the book in the player and press play.
The Escape by David Baldacci.
I love it!
The Idaho Talking Book Service has more than 75,000 free audiobooks of all types. Visit neverstopreading.org, sponsored by the Idaho Commission for Libraries and the Institute of Museum and Library Services.
Okay, so In case you didn't know, 3% of Idaho residents have physical disabilities. That's 45,000 people in Idaho. And these people all would qualify to the Talking Book services. They're open to all ages. It's not just for seniors, which a lot of people think the Talking Book service is only for seniors or only for those who are blind, but it's much more than that. So I wanted to show you today what it is. So this is the player that they receive. And it doesn't look like a typical player that we have. So in the mail, they receive this funny little case. And inside is this cartridge, as we saw in the PSA. And this cartridge just slips right inside, and then they can listen to their book.
What if it's a really, really, really long book? Do they get more than one cartridge?
No, it all fits on there.
Wow.
Yeah, this particular one has 4 books on it. And
Will it play now, or do you have that plugged in?
my battery's not charged, so otherwise, yes, it would play. But it just plugs into the wall, and it will charge the battery up. And it bookmarks, so you can keep your spot and go back to it. You can speed up or slow down the speech on the book. Some of the things they have, I have to get out my little cheat sheet here. They have 63,500 titles and 93,000 copies, so there's different copies. They also offer Braille books, and they have 25,000 titles of those. And you might want to know who qualifies for this wonderful service. Of course, the legally blind do. Those who are physically unable to hold a book or to turn pages. So a perfect example of that would be a stroke victim. Okay. Those who are visually unable to read standard print without the help of more than just glasses. So if they're having to have their glasses and a magnifying glass, they'd qualify. Also, if they're unable to read because of a brain condition, so if they've had a brain injury, they would qualify. Also, some forms of dyslexia will qualify. It's a really awesome.
What if you broke both of your arms?
You wouldn't be able to turn pages.
It's true.
Be
So
a temporary.
you could qualify. So this isn't a permanent thing. Those who would just
Okay.
be on it temporary, they would qualify
Okay,
also.
great.
It's a very good question. So I have helped several people with their little machines, and if you have a problem with the machine or if you need to sign up for the program, you can come in and visit us here at the library.
Oh, great.
And we can help you with that. It's a very easy application. And then it's really great because there's a couple different options. You can either pick out your own books from a catalog, or they kind of ask you what you like. Do you like romance? Do you like westerns? Do you like fantasy? And you mark, there's a big long list, and they'll just choose things to send to you. So you can have a couple different options. There's also some newspapers and magazines that are available to listen to.
And is it all free?
All of it is free.
Great.
So when you're done with your cartridge, you slip it back in here. It's nice and easy. Just snap it closed. This label that has my address on it, I just flip it over and put it in the mail. I don't have to worry about postage or anything. It's all taken care of.
Oh, nice. Now, who reads these stories?
Who
Is
are
it
the
like
narrators?
Jim Dale?
Are they the?
It depends on the book. They actually have people at the Idaho Commission for Libraries that record the books and some of the books in magazines. They try to do like 50 books a year because it takes a while to get through them. But then just like our CDs that are at the library are read by various artists, I
Readers.
guess, readers. So are theirs.
Okay.
Lots of times it's the same thing.
I was wondering, do they use the same ones that are on the recorded CDs that you buy?
Some of the ones I've heard are the same readers that the publishers
And those
have
are
put out.
actors and actresses, and some of them are just awesome.
They are.
So-
Yeah.
That's great.
I was going to say another thing that I had found out, which is great for our local care facilities, is they also have an institutional application. So retirement centers, rehab facilities, any of those people that are interested can fill out an application and then list all of their residents that qualify and need it, and they can go all through the business.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
What a great way.
So if you have any questions about it, or you have a neighbor that might be interested, have them call the library, talk to one of us, and we can at least get them the information that they need.
Thank you. That's great. And what a good service. Kathan, what do you have there?
I'm going to start out with a book that I just finished reading for my book group.
That one.
That one. This is called The Silent Sister, and it is by Diane Chamberlain, and she has written a lot of books. This is the first one I've read by her. It's got all sorts of things going on. So you start out with a young woman, she's about 25, her name is Riley McPherson, and all of her life she's lived with the knowledge that she had an older sister when she was 2 who died because she committed suicide. And Riley doesn't know why she committed suicide, she just knows that she's gone. And she also has a brother who was about 4 or 5 years older than she was, named Danny. Well, she has already lost her mother when she was in high school. Her mother died of cancer, and her family moved when she was about 2 or a little older than 2 from where they were living in Maryland to a place called New Bern, and it's in South Carolina, whatever. Anyway, it's not where she was born. So she has now gone on with her life, and she's become a school counselor, and her brother was in the war, in the Iraq War, and he has been injured in the war and come home again, but he's living as a recluse. And her father is living in New Bern, and Riley is not living nearby, but now her father has passed away, so she's taking her summer break to go back to his home and close it up, clean it up and get it ready for sale and everything. And she gets there, and strange things start happening. She finds out that things were not all as she thought that they were, and that there's a possibility that she was adopted. Her older sister, Lisa, was a child prodigy. She played violin and was slated to go to Juilliard, and she comes across information that her sister committed suicide because she had a bad recommendation from a teacher who had taught her all the way through, this man named Stephen Davis. And there's some question as to whether she's really dead. And so now Riley is on a hunt to figure out what is going on around here and how all these people are related and who knows what and why was it kept from her when all these years she thought that, she never got to know her sister. Well, now she's not even sure that she has a family anymore. Is she related at all to anybody? So now it's crazy.
And the plot keeps thickening.
The plot keeps thickening. And then partway into the book, you start hearing from her sister. So you hear her sister's side of the story and what really happened and why it really happened.
That from beyond the grave, or maybe from...
No, she's still alive.
Oh.
But Riley has to figure out where she is and why she ran and how she did it and who she's really, who are her real parents. She was adopted, and what happened? Why didn't her parents tell her these things? And in addition, her mom's best friend, Jeannie, has apparently become her dad's lover after her mother passes away because they were all really good friends, and he never told her this. And Jeannie knows some things, and Danny knows a few things, but Danny's, he's suffering from post-traumatic stress, and he's angry, so angry. He would just, once he figures out or hears that Lisa might still be alive, what he wants to do is bring her to justice because she has ruined his life. Basically because he has these strange memories of things that happened when he was, 6, 7 years old, that he has been told were all in his imagination.
Well, it's
those
not
things didn't really happen.
Who broke his life?
So what he doesn't know that he thinks that she basically has murdered this music teacher, and she's run away. There's, you know, you'll learn this early on.
Teacher Willikers.
You're right.
So he thinks that she ran away from this, and that she should face the news and face the justice of it.
So who wrote this book?
This is by Diane Chamberlain. She's the best-selling author of Necessary Lies. Her name is, she lives in North Carolina. And it's engrossing. It keeps you going, it keeps you guessing, you know. Actually, I guessed pretty fast what was going on, but I shouldn't say that. But it does have a fast-moving plot line, and lots and lots and lots and lots of stuff going on in there.
Thank you.
So, yeah, try it.
Okay, or not.
Well, it makes you think. But we decided at the end, what would you do? Okay, I can't tell you anymore. I'll give away the ending.
Tell us some things, John.
Things, okay. I'm pretty excited about this book. I discovered it, I've read about it in, probably in Publishers Weekly, and was interested enough in it to order it. It's Blitzed Drugs in the Third Reich.
Wow.
And
oh yeah, I've heard that.
Yeah. And who knew? The Nazis gave us sarin and jet fighters, but it looks like they also gave us crystal meth too.
Right.
So
I think I saw something about how one of their highest ups was strung out on that.
Yeah, one of the reasons they did so well early in the war was that all of their soldiers were strung out on it. They could they could drive forward for 24 hours or 36 hours at a time. That was part of the reason they did so well early on. But there also Hitler ended up using quite a lot of drugs. He had a doctor who ended up prescribing drugs to him, and Hitler was, he was a vegetarian, and early on he was kind of anti-drug, but when he was experiencing exhaustion, this doctor gave him some cocktails that were served as a little pick-me-up, and so he was quite happy about that, and made use of this doctor quite a lot, and then
became addicted.
He became very angry at him when he discovered that among the things the doctor was giving him were opioids. So he was terribly against opioids. So anyways, this looked like a very interesting book to me, and so it arrived today, and I'm going to read it.
Very good.
So,
nice.
yeah.
And I went upstairs today and I found this beautiful cookbook. It's called Samarkand, Recipes and Stories from Central Asia and the Caucasus. And I loved these pictures. Mosaics. Big piles of fruits and vegetables. Pictures and recipes with pictures also. So I'd like to make every one of these things. I'm sure I won't. But I really like to see pictures and food and stories from other countries. So this is one of the newest, Samarkand, and I want to read it all. Look how beautiful those look. Fish and saffron pilaf. Feasting in downtown Tbilisi. All sorts of interesting things.
Are you going to share? Are you going to bring your...
I will bring the recipes that I make, yes.
Food?
I will bring some food.
Ooh, apples, that looks yummy.
Baklava baked apples.
Yum.
That sounds good.
And some pomegranate
And vodka sorbet.
sorbet.
Oh, it is a sorbet.
And here's a map. So this is my latest discovery, and I'm going to sample some and bring them and share. Why not? There we go.
Very nice. Okay. This one is probably one, I haven't read any of these authors, but I loved the title of it. It's called Other People's Baggage. And it is, so it's 3 novellas, and they're mysteries, and they all revolve around these 3 people having the same suitcase and then getting each other's suitcase. So they end up at a hotel or family member's house and opening this blue vintage suitcase and realizing that none of it is their belongings.
Oops.
Kind of a
and
wrong
they're
box story.
yes, yes, and they're short. They're very quick reads. They're all a little bit different tone, but they, you know, they wrap together with the suitcase, and the person stuck with trying not only to figure out their own mystery that they're involved in, but how to get their belongings back. And some of them, the middle one revolves around trying to figure out the other person through what was in their suitcase.
Oh, obviously they're not locked, so they can get into the suitcase.
No, they're not locked, and
Maybe
they're
they all
all
have the
vintage.
same key.
And they're in different places. I think the first one's in California, and the second one's in Texas. So they're all different places, and I loved the title. I'm
So
sorry.
what kinds of things are
I would not want
In
somebody
the
to find my
suitcases.
suitcase.
smuggled exotic animals?
No, they didn't really have that at all. One had a bottle of whiskey in a dry county in Texas that caused a bit of a problem. But you know, they're really definitely probably a cozy mystery is not generally a book that I would pick to read, but they were fun. They were fun, short novellas, and I really liked. Although John and I have discussed my dislike for puns most of the time, I did like I got caught by the title, Other People's Baggage. It was really fun read, so I recommend this one, and it's brand new, and I'll bring it back when we go back to the library.
That sounds good. Cool.
So we have a new little bookshelf at the library by the help desk on the first floor, and it is entitled Book Bites. And these books are for adults, but they're just little. So it's just a little
Nice.
bite. And these are by some famous authors, some not so well-known authors, a little bit of mixture. I've seen James Patterson on there. The one I brought today is by Margaret Johnson, and it's called The Murder Maker. I have not read this, but I love the back. It says, "Congratulations, you created a murderer. But even though I've killed 3 people, I'm not to blame. You are." Apparently, her and her boyfriend have broken up, and now she wants revenge. So, nice little book.
Blaming
Some
her
of 'em-
boyfriend.
yeah, some of them have pictures in them. Anyways, the book bites. So if the other books in adult fiction seem a little daunting, try a book bite.
They're not condensed or anything? They're
No,
just
that's the whole
short
thing right there.
novellas.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah. Just a nice little
What's on the back
taste.
of this right here? What does this refer to?
It has different reading levels listed on the back. So some of them are really great for when English is a second language.
Yeah.
So we can go and
Good.
look at what level it is. But they're still just fun, bite-sized books.
Very nice.
They have really cool stickers on them.
They do.
It says
Book bites.
Book Bites has a bite out of a book.
Wow. It even has a new kind of a spine label.
right.
Sticker.
So they'll all be in that one special spot. At the moment, there's about 40 on the shelf, but we
Okay.
have almost 100. They're still being processed.
Nice.
So
That's exciting. Is it all published by the same company?
no, there's other publishers.
Aren't they sometimes called high-low?
High Lows, Book Shots.
Book Shots, yeah, because I ended up buying a few of those, in January or so,
Mhm.
or was it last fall? For that collection, just,
Nice. Cool.
gosh, what was it? It was a while ago. Okay,
What do you
well,
have?
I'm going to talk about a book that I'm not done with, but I'm going to share part of it. This is called Scythe. It is by Neil Shusterman, who also wrote a series called Unwind, and I'll talk a little bit about several of the books he's written. It has this nice silver sticker on the front, which means it's a Michael Prince Honor book. This is what I say all the time is like a Newbery Honor. He also does the Newbery Medal, so one of them will get a medal. This one is interesting because, and he writes things like this, because it's about a future setting in which there's a world with no hunger, no disease, no war, and no misery. However, that means nobody dies. So, in order to keep control of the population, they have people who are the Grim Reaper,
Ooh.
whose job it is to keep that population under control. And they have to decide whose life to end and when. Because if you're living, not only do you live forever, but you can reset back to an age somewhere from 21 years and older. So there are people that the grandmother is younger than maybe their parent or their child. And it's interesting how they do it. They have specific rules about how they go about choosing people. And
on the back, I think it said some.
Yeah, there's some commandments. Thou shalt kill. Thou shalt kill with no bias, bigotry, or malice aforethought. Thou shalt grant an annum of immunity to the beloved of those who accept your coming. So if a scythe comes to your house and you're the one that they're taking, your family has immunity from being reaped for another year. But thou shalt kill the beloved of those who resist. So if it's your time, your turn is up, and you run off, your family suffers the consequences. But I just think it's hilarious. I was reading a part in here. What happens in the very beginning is there's two young people, Citra and Rowan, who are chosen to be an apprentice to one of the scythes. Neither one of them wants this role, but now they have to master the art, quotation marks around that, of taking life, knowing that the consequences of failure could mean losing their own. And they do statistics and say, statistically, this many people would have died in a car accident, or statistically, this many people would have died in this community, or anyway, this one struck me because
Actuarial tables.
They went on a plane flight. Okay. Most airlines at this time now, flight is always on time. Now this is ridiculous. Okay. In this setting, the flight was on time as usual. While weather couldn't entirely be controlled, it was easily diverted away from airports and out of flight paths. Most airlines boasted 99.9% on-time service. We all know this is fantasy. It was a full flight, but with the lavishly appointed seats of modern air travel, it didn't feel crowded at all. These days, flying was as comfortable as sitting in one's own living room, with the added perk of live entertainment. String quartets and vocal stylists soared across the skies with a cabin full of contented passengers. Air travel these days was far more civilized than in the age of mortality, our age. It was now an exceptionally pleasant way to reach one's destination. However, this day, just as people are getting on the plane and taking their seats, who should show up but not one scythe, not two scythes, but several, which they called an elegy. Why were they there? Everybody's starting to get, worried, because scythes are given preference. If you come to a restaurant and they're there, they can take your seat, they can take your food, you just give way.
I'd give them my seat.
Yes, and go somewhere else.
So one guy has
No
a little
puns on United. in that
panic
case.
attack here, and he tries to, well, he does. He leaves the plane, and the scythe says, what I'm here for is this whole plane is going to be gleaned. Or, where.
Now, do scythes ever die?
Yes, they do. That's why he's training some new ones. And I think there comes a point where they're done or they choose to be done. So.
Are there any perks to being a scythe?
Sure,
Yeah,
you get everything free.
No. Well,
And
that's
you live a very interesting life. Anyway, it was a little depressing when I first started, and I thought, I don't know if I'm finished reading this, but he has a way of dealing with future settings that I thought I'll explain the next time around. One of the other series that I have read of his that that's interesting. Anyway, Scythe is the first book in the Art of Scythe series.
How
and
many
it's
will
by
there be?
Neil Schusterman. I don't know. Usually there's 3. Although in some of his other series there's been more than that. So there you
Thank
have
you.
it. What will happen in the future?
Share a couple
Could happen.
of books with us, John.
Okay. Well, then the next one I have is a book called American Rhapsody. It's writers, musicians, movie stars, and one great building. So it's a book that kind of ranges about American culture. And one that I've read is actually about Edith Wharton. It talks about Edith Wharton's writing. She wrote The House of Mirth, An Age of Innocence, and I haven't read much of her work, but I did recently read a book of her ghost stories, which was really good. So it talks about her life, and it's a way of kind of tracking the evolution of American culture over the 20th century. And the building that is spoken about, as you can see from the cover, is the Chrysler Building in New York City. And there's an essay in here about that too. And the story about it is pretty interesting. It was built at a time in the late 20s, right before the crash.
So
and there
elaborate and ornate.
Yeah, there was a competition between the Chrysler Building and one other building. I don't even remember the name of it, but to top out at to be the tallest building. And the other building, according to the plans, won, but they had a secret plan with the Chrysler Building to put in a spire.
One more thing.
Stretch it up,
Just inch
above,
it
above the other
flagpole.
building. Yeah, just put it above the other building. And they didn't tell anybody they were putting it up, and they didn't even announce the day. And as a consequence, nobody even knows what day it happened now. There's no record of when it actually
Somebody finally
was
noticed
put up
it.
there.
Went, what? Where'd that come from?
Yeah, and so
Interesting.
So that was that whole competitive aspect of the tall buildings was interesting, and as it turns out, it was not the tallest building for very long, and there was another building that ended up being a little bit taller, and then of course the Empire State Building came along,
and even bigger.
Eclipsed them all. And the Empire State Building was actually the tallest building in the world, I believe, until the World Trade Centers were built in the early 70s.
Wow. So it reigned supreme for a long time.
It was over 30 years. And but the Chrysler Building is interesting in that the man who built it was the man who started the car company, and named after him. And he had originally worked for some other, I believe he worked for GM for a while, and at a certain point he decided he wanted to set up his own car company, and he was just utterly and totally dedicated to making really good cars. His quality was top, but also cheap, inexpensive. And so as a consequence, he ended up making cars that were really well made and forward thinking in their design, but that were affordable by a lot of people. And the building, a lot of people are mistaken in thinking that the building was funded by Chrysler Corporation, that it's identified with the company, but he personally funded it out of his own money. There was no Chrysler Corporation money in it.
Wow. And
he built it for his sons to give them something to do. It was a way of educating them in management. The building was really controversial at the time that it was built. It was like Lewis Mumford hated it. He thought that it was like an advertisement for the products, for the cars. Because if there are these really famous eagles that jet out from the top of the building, I think there's a famous photograph of a photographer taking pictures, and she's sitting astride one of those eagles.
Wow.
Above New York City. And it's a kind of an unnerving photo. But Mumford apparently thought that those were like copies of hood ornaments from Chrysler cars.
But they weren't?
They weren't. There were never any Chrysler cars that had eagles as hood ornaments. So, and it's, although at the time the building was there were critics who really hated it. Over time it's kind of gained cachet, and it's really thought of as being a very beautiful building now. And
Instead of the pretentious
right.
monstrosity.
Yeah, I think it's a more beautiful building than the Empire State Building by a long shot. And just the way it's designed is because it tapers. It seems to sort of disappear into the air. If you're looking up at it, it doesn't really seem to end. It just sort of
Stairway to heaven.
Yeah, it's just really, it's really a cool building.
Cool.
So this book has got essays about the Chrysler Building and about Edith Wharton, and then there's a lot of other essays in here that I haven't read. There's one about F. Scott Fitzgerald and Burt Williams and Stephen Fetchit and Dash Hammett, Peggy Guggenheim, Katharine Hepburn. So
All people. Yeah, that's exciting.
It's well written. So I'm pretty excited about having the rest of it ahead of me to read.
Nice. Now, I see that there's the next book there says...
Well, since this book had, talked about the Chrysler Building, I thought it would be interesting to also show a book about the life of Chrysler. And this one I haven't read, but it's about the life of is Chrysler himself and his design of automobiles, and it's a kind of a corporate history too. So, so I just pulled this. It looked like an interesting book, and I just pulled it as kind of a companion to this one to
Very
show.
good. Cool.
So.
Thank you. I brought another one called The Inquisitor's Tale. And this is a book set, the author, Adam Gidwitz, researched this for years and years and years and years and years. And he wrote it as if it were a medieval manuscript. See, it has interesting little details in the sides. That's the work of this illustrator, Hatem Ali. But the whole book is written as if it were a form of the Canterbury Tales. 3 saintly children and their holy dog.
I was going to say the dog looks pretty saintly.
Oh yes, the dog has been resurrected.
Oh, well.
It's got a halo.
It is a holy dog.
It's a saint.
These 3 children, they come from very diverse backgrounds. This tall young man is a very, very, very tall student monk. The girl Jeanne is a peasant girl, and then this little boy with curly hair is a Jewish boy. And they meet together because each one of them has been, without trying to, has performed some miracles. And now all of France, all of medieval France is after them. And in an inn, the author is sitting down, or the person who's writing the book, and there's all these people that seem to know little bits and pieces of their tales. And so, for example, this is chapter 7, The Innkeeper's Tale. And he goes on and tells a bit. And right where he breaks off at a very exciting point, someone else knows some more of the story. And so I've been reading this, and it's really exciting. And it's also kind of gory in some places, because one of the miracles, for example, that William, the student monk, performs, he's ambushed in the forest by some really, really bad people. And so he takes his donkey's leg and swings it around, and nobody's left standing or alive. And then he puts the leg back on the donkey, and it's fine.
It was a living donkey.
So no animals were harmed in the making.
At least they weren't dead, killed.
And the dog even. She was a very wonderful, loyal dog. And a bad animal came into the house when Jean was a little baby. And so instead of letting that bad animal bite Jean, the dog got the animal and shook it and killed it. And when the parents came home, they only saw the dog with the bloody muzzle, and they thought, oh, this dog has killed our little child. And so they killed the dog. But then Jean brought her back to life. So, wonderful story. It's really exciting and quite an adventure, and this won a Newbery Honor, and I think you'll like it. So, The Inquisitor's Tale, or The Three Magical Children and Their Holy Dog by Adam Gidwitz.
Very nice. I was going to bring a different book, but it's checked out. So I brought the first book in a series. This book is called Midnight Riot, and it's by Ben Aronovich. The one I wanted to bring was book number 6. It's called The Hanging Tree. I really, really enjoyed this series because it's on one hand like a British police procedural story. So it's there's a lot of inner politics, and there's a lot of stuff about how the police work and how they investigate. And then there's this supernatural undercurrent of London. So this author actually has written several episodes of Doctor Who, and he's written some of the graphic novels and novelizations of it. And this is actually graphic novels as well. But I just love the story because you're kind of reading along, and it's this detective police story, and it's very founded in the streets of London, and there's all of these details that really put you there. And then he's talking to the goddess of a river, or these guys are in the underground, like the underground is this other race of dwarfs or something, and he's this kid that just kind of stumbles into it. He's definitely kind of this mix of what is current London, and he jokes about it. There's all kinds of jokes where he's like, "What, am I going to Hogwarts?" And I mean, they make reference to Harry Potter and joke around it. I also like that they're kind of this magical system. They say the person that founded their order was Sir Isaac Newton. He's the founder of this kind of thing that people don't really know about. And there's 6 books, so there's 6 different stories. After he wrote the first one, he takes different rivers, because a lot of people think of the Thames, but there's, that whole estuary situation of rivers that are somewhat underground because the city has grown up around them of London.
But through London.
Yeah, so he does a lot of historical maps of the city of London and kind of the environment around it. And it really goes back and forth. It feels so real. And then you're like, whoa, wait, what is going on now? So all of them are great. They also have done graphic novels. We don't have any of those yet, but
we will.
I'm going to look at them because they're pretty interesting too. I just really love his writing, and every book in the series is great. And this one was the first one, so it's lots of fun. It's kind of, him getting his letter to Hogwarts where he sees, a ghost, and the ghost is involved in a murder investigation. The ghost is the prime witness. So I really enjoyed it, though. All of them are great. So look for this one or the most recent one.
And can you read them out of order?
Yes, you can.
Okay.
You can, because each story is very self-contained. It might spur you to want to read the ones before it.
And after.
But yes, each story is really self-contained and wraps it up at the end. So.
Nice. Thank you.
Very good. Last month, I talked about March Madness, the book battle among books.
Yes.
And so each week, it went down, down, down. We started out with 32 books?
I think 32.
32 books. Anyways, it was head-to-head with Hatchet and The Giving Tree. And the winner was The Giving Tree. So I just wanted to highlight that today.
Oh, very nice.
Classic. I think everybody has at least heard of The Giving Tree. If you haven't, or if you'd like to look at it again, we have several copies at the library. They are found in the picture book section. It is poetry, which is appropriate for this month because it's National Poetry Month. So I also wanted to let people know that through the month of April, we have the poetry wall going on. It's downstairs this year, so come take a look at it. So
Will you show us the picture of the old man sitting on the stump?
The classic.
I just love that picture.
There we go.
Yeah.
Old man on the
And
stump.
the boy did.
Oh, very nice.
Yep. There you go. The
Makes me
giving
want to
tree.
find a stump of my own.
Just be sure you tell it thank you.
Thank you.
There you go.
Okay.
Go for it.
I said I was going to tell you some more about books by Neil Shusterman, and one other series that I read, most of it at any rate, has, I can't even remember when it was published, but it's still being popular, or still being read. It's that popular. It was called The Unwind Dystology, and this is after the Second Civil War. The Bill of Life states that human life may not be touched from the moment of conception until the child reaches the age of 13. So there's no abortion, you know, and everybody is just happy this way. I read several books about the same type of thing in the future, about people living longer.
He likes to make rules about
Right.
arbitrary life
So
choices.
this is the choice, okay? However, if you choose, once your teenager reaches the age of 13, you can retroactively get rid of that teenager through a process called unwinding. Now, this is not like abortion where you're killing the child. You're actually using the body parts from that child to further the life of
when
somebody
my
else. So
kids were
that somebody might
teenagers,
have the
little
hand
ones.
of this person and the heart of that person, and you know, so nothing goes to waste. However, there were three teens in the first book that run away. They defy the system. There's Connor, whose parents have ordered his unwinding. He does not want to be unwound. And Risa is the ward of a state who is going to be unwound due to cost cutting.
Oh, gosh.
And Lev, his parents' 10th child, whose unwinding has been planned since birth as a religious tithing. And their paths intersect, and they have to work together to survive. And they may change the fate of America in the process.
I hope so.
So it was Unwind, Unholy, WHOLLY, Unsouled, SOULED, Undivided, and then there is a fifth book called Unbound, which is just stories about. So there's more of little short stories. I remember this same time I read this, I read another one called The Declaration. And it was another one where if you had, you could live forever as long as you didn't have any children, I think is what it was. And if you did, then they had to be sent to an orphanage where they were sort of, not sold, but you know, given out as like servants. And there was a girl in there who thinks she's been given to this orphanage and she's a surplus. And then she finds out that maybe that wasn't true and she runs away. So it's very interesting to see, you know, what thoughts would be, you know, what would we do if we were able to get rid of all of disease and illness and injury and death? How would we deal with that? You know, you can't have everybody live, right? Because then you'd have to start living out in outer space or something. And then two other books real quickly, or as authors that I'll mention, are ones that had to do with cloning. And I know I've talked about them before. One of them was The Adoration of Jenna Fox. And this is about a girl who discovers that her name is Jenna Fox. She's just woken up from a coma, and then she starts having these memories of things that don't seem to make sense. And have something to do, it has a lot to do with cloning. There are 3 books in this series. I've got the first and the third one. I need to get the second one again, by Mary E. Pearson. And then the other one, which was just a classic and a favorite, is The House of the Scorpion by Nancy Farmer. And this is about a boy named Mateo Alacran, who wasn't born, but he was harvested from the DNA of El Patron, who's the lord of a country called Opium, which is a country in between Mexico and California. But you find out why he was harvested and what his purpose is going to be. There's not only one a Newbery, did it win a Newbery? It looks like it's a
Honor, I think.
Newbery honor, a Michael Prince honor, and then a finalist for book. I can't read it anyway. Three different awards.
Yeah.
This ended up having a sequel about 10 years later called Lord of Opium, which I didn't like as well as the very first one, but the first one I recommend a lot, and it's highly popular.
Yeah, it's
So,
really good.
books about cloning, books about futures with
Strange rules.
with no death, and so anyway, some things to think about.
Cool. I think we have time for another book or so. John?
Okay. This one's called The End of the Long Summer. It's nonfiction. It's actually deals with global warming, with climate change. And she calls it The End of the Long Summer because the last few thousand years in which humans have built their civilization has been a very nice time on the planet for us to do that. We didn't just accomplish it ourselves. It was also somewhat of a
Natural.
consequence of converging circumstances that made it possible. And so this addresses changes that might need to be made, or that would need to be made in our civilization in order to assure us of continuing past the next few hundred years. So it's not a book of essays. It's
Speculation.
yeah, it's some speculation, and I just saw it today, and it looked interesting, and read the first few pages of it. But I think I would like to see some other books on this topic in the collection, and so I'm gonna look for some and see what I can find.
You should listen to the thing they said about the end of the drought in California and what they think may have actually contributed to the drought.
Well,
It had something to do with the way the things converged in the
Things.
it's not weather, but there was something to do in I can't remember.
Well, they talked about
Did you hear
the
it?
atmospheric river.
Yeah.
Was that what they were
That's
talking
what I'm
about?
talking about. See, I knew, so you knew you would know. I got it. I knew
Actually-
something happened, but I couldn't remember the details.
Yeah, historically, that's happened before. There was
Yeah.
there was an atmospheric river in the 1800s. I think in the 1860s. That actually put the Central Valley under about 10 feet of water.
Wow.
And if something like that happens again, it's going to be pretty horrendous. But as far as climate models, one thing I read about a number of years ago that seems to be coming true is there's a model called the Hadley model, which talks about changes that will occur in different areas. And for the Northwest, they say that the Northwest should actually see an increase in rain. And that seems to be happening. The Pacific Northwest and Idaho and
So California, Northern California.
and Northern California, should see an increase in rainfall. So it's been interesting reading about a lot of these things that they're speculations, but they're founded in science. And typically, what the climate scientists have done is they've made different models, like, well, this could happen here, or this could happen here. Always with the kind of the proviso that things might not turn out quite that way. And
I don't think it's an exact science.
no, but it's getting more exact
But,
over time.
yeah,
Is the interesting
over
thing.
the-
It's like as they refine their models and learn more about how the system works, they're actually doing a better job of anticipating
And
what kinds
predicting
of
different
things
things.
we can expect to happen. I was just reading an article yesterday about there's a glacier in Greenland, and I don't remember the name of it, but it's actually the depth of the glacier at the mouth of the, where it actually enters the ocean, it's not as deep where it enters the ocean as it is further back.
Sure.
And so the warm water is going
Goes
up underneath
underneath
it, and it's melting it faster.
Ooh.
And
Because
so
will it cause sea levels to rise.
Yeah, it is causing sea levels to rise, and it's like Greenland alone is turning out to be contributing as much right now as all of Antarctica. Which I
As
thought
far
was-
as water?
Yeah, as far as
Wow.
how much water is melting and going into the ocean. So that's pretty interesting.
Wow. Well, all this talk of water is making me thirsty, and I bet that you all are getting thirsty also. So why don't we break here? You can go get a drink, and we will too. And come to the library and visit us and talk about your theories and the books you've read. We'll be so happy to see you. Thank you.